You're listening to One Bright Star's Life After Loss, a podcast that's focused on the lifelong journey of life after loss, with your hosts Erica Fisher and Alicia Moore. One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast is sponsored by the law firm of Burkholz and Associates. And now, One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast.
Hello and welcome to One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast. I'm Erica Fisher, Executive Director with One Bright Star.
And Alicia Moore, President of One Bright Star.
And today we have Jonna with us. Jonna is from Mankato Mortuary. She is a funeral director there as well as a board member for One Bright Star.
Hey, Alicia and Erica. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
So, Jonna, you have a big role in the community as one of the funeral directors for the North Mankato area funeral homes. And I didn't realize how expanded you guys were. I didn't realize that you went all over.
Yeah, we have 5 locations. So we have Mankato, North Mankato, Mapleton, Lake Crystal, and St. Peter. So we do cover a large area.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And you have great relationships with the other local funeral homes. Yep. And we've touched base about that. So basically, what we want to talk about today on our podcast is just your role as a funeral director and everything. How long have you been a funeral director? We'll start with that.
I have been a funeral director for 9 years.
9 years.
I've been within this community for about 4 years.
Okay.
I did my undergrad at MSU, Mankato here, and then I went to the University of Minnesota for mortuary science.
Okay.
And how long is that program, Jonna?
You know, I did it in a fast track, so I did it in a year. It is a 2-year program if you have your undergraduate degree.
Mm-hmm. Look at you, great. Fast track.
Yes.
Wow. So that was my dream job when I was younger, just so you know. I wanted to be a mortician, and I watched My Girl.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. And I just thought it was so fascinating and such a unique part of death, the process, you know, just such a big part, but you're kind of in the background,
right?
Kind of thing. Yeah.
It's a big job. It's a big role in the community, but like you said, we do stay behind the scenes as much as we can, but we're just there to help families and serve their community when they need us.
Absolutely. Yes. And serving the community, you deal with, like you said, supporting families, guiding families. How does a day look for you?
You know, as most of everybody knows, this job is a 24/7 job, 365. We do go into the office every day. We're on call nights and weekends, but our role is all over. So we do the initial call of when someone dies. We go to the place of death. And if the family's there, we'll talk with them and see what their wishes are and what they want to do moving forward. We do meet with the families, file paperwork that's needed, and then we assist the families with its cremation or burial. We meet with those families and do the visitation, the funeral, the graveside, whatever they wish to do, a celebration of life. We follow through with everything, and then we, try to support them in any way they need, even afterwards, if they need that. But usually they get that support from their close family and friends.
Right. But being that first person, that they have to connect with, that would be really difficult, I would think. I've never had to experience this, thankfully. I know my family and I have talked about arrangements like for my parents kind of thing. They have everything planned, which I'm kind of thankful. When my family first started talking about it, I was like, this is really morbid that we're discussing, future arrangements. But after hearing stories from you about just like your kind of day to day, I'm thankful because I don't know if I'd be able to make those decisions alone.
Right. And I always tell families it could take 2 to 3 hours, that initial meeting. And a lot of families are surprised, but there are so many details that we go through. So if a death would occur or will occur, say someone's going on hospice or something, they will meet with us ahead of time to kind of get what the person wants for their funeral, which is nice. It's a nice gift for their family. because whoever's left behind, whether it's children, a spouse, things like that, it just makes that time easier so they can focus on their journey through grief rather than picking out flowers or selecting what food they want to have.
Right.
So it's nice to have a little input from that person before the death occurs.
Right. So if that doesn't happen, for instance, One Bright Star is a resource for families who have lost children. You don't plan for your child to die.
No, never. And nobody should ever have to plan for their child to die. So those are
different, I bet. And in dealing with those families, is that a different interaction somewhat too?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of things are very sensitive. It's hard to open up, not only for the family, but for the funeral director. It's not a lot of close interaction. Some families do open up more than others, but it's just so hard on everybody. It's so sensitive.
It is. That has to really be challenging. And so I commend you, because any families that we've dealt with, or even people when you have a funeral and lost my in-laws and that stuff, one of the things, I didn't deal with the funeral home at all, but I often hear people say how wonderful their funeral directors were and how much they appreciate everything that they did and helped them through that. So you definitely have a very special gift when you work in that area, because you have that gift of empathy and you are able to be gentle and kind, and yet you get a lot done. And when I have kind of heard you visit about some of the things that you guys do behind the scenes, oh my gosh, there is a lot to be done to get a funeral plan, the visitation, all those little details. Plus you're dealing with the body. You have to do all of that other stuff behind the scenes. And when you get someone presented and the family comes in and sees them, you often hear people say too, I hear more often than not how good they look and that they did such a nice job. And so, just kind of on that note, and I don't know why I'm thinking of that, do you ask for like a picture then and you go off of that? And do you you yourself, or you have certain people that come in and do makeup, hair? How do you guys do that, Jonna?
So we, as the funeral directors, actually do that as well. We do the preparation as far as the embalming, the cosmetics, and we do have someone on staff that can do hair as well.
Okay.
But yes, typically that's part of that arrangement. We just ask them, how do you want mom to look in the casket? Typically they'll give us a picture, but we talk about cosmetics, whether it's natural, or she loved a red lip, or she wore pink nail polish. Those little details go a long ways. Because I remember a few years back, my grandma died, and they put orange nail polish on her. And I'll never forget that, because she never wore nail polish. And that's like the one thing that sticks in my mind, like, oh, wow.
Wow. Right.
That wasn't grandma.
They didn't pay attention to detail then.
Right.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, because you're the first person they see. You're it, kind of their...
And I think that first time I meet the family, it's important to be open, honest, and not try to hide anything, and just see what the family wants. And nothing that they say is wrong. That,
absolutely, yeah.
Even if it's different than the other family, anything is okay with us.
Right.
And I didn't realize how many different types of funeral arrangements you could do, like the variety. I had no idea that there was so much. And maybe it's because I am getting older, and, my experiences with, loss have been grandparents or, great uncle kind of thing. And unfortunately, a few friends. But I've never been on the backside of that. So it's interesting to know. And one other thing that I wanted to touch on is Mankato Mortuary has this, on social media, they have the Mortuary Minute. And it's very, very interesting, actually. And it's taught me things. It's just a quick, maybe a minute and a half video, if that even. But whoever is on there talks about, what to do in different scenarios for a funeral, or when you lose somebody, and it's super helpful. So
yeah, it's just a little information of something maybe you don't think about or didn't know we did, or what we help with. So it's just a nice little informational video, and it's kind of fun, and I think people really like watching them. And we've had a lot of views.
Absolutely. I know.
That's great.
I watch
Good.
them and I send them to people. I'm like, did you know this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously death is that taboo subject that people still. I mentioned to a coworker that I was coming today to do this, and she's like, "Oh God, gross, really?" And I'm like, "Why? We all are going to need to work with a funeral director. We're all going to have to go through this, and so." The more information we put out there, but it's just really comforting knowing that we just have some great people that are going to be working with us when we go through these journeys in our life.
Right.
And I certainly feel people can't see you, Jonna, but you are young, and it's wonderful to see that we've got great, vibrant, smart people that are going into this field that do have the caring and empathy that will get us all through these challenging times. So I really commend you because your job has got to be so draining. How do you do it?
Good question.
Well, she is drinking. Is that a Monster over there?
Yes. A lot of caffeine. Yeah, it is draining. And, but I chose this. Actually, I feel like it chose me to be a funeral director. But the long nights, the long weekends, just a thank you from a family is all worth it. Oh. And I'm being honest.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, yes.
You have an impact on a lot of people, and
you make a difference at a time in their lives when they needed that so much.
Right.
And so that's got to be so rewarding.
It is. Honestly, it is. Even just we get a lot of thank you notes in the mail, and we save them all. And that's kind of what we look back on when things get tough.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's
absolutely.
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
but I will say it's not easy when you have 2 small children and a house.
Yes. Right. And you're putting in long hours and doing all of that.
Right. But it's good to have a good support system. And
absolutely. Yeah.
It also has to be really difficult, obviously, when you have small children and you deal with children that have died and you have to take care of those children.
Yeah, it's really hard because you put yourself in their shoes, and even though you don't want to, but that's how you
think.
So, yeah, and
that's only human,
and that makes you a better person to say, I don't know what you're going through, but
that's one thing I will never do is I can't pretend to say I understand.
No,
because I don't.
Me neither.
I don't. I have shared this with Alicia before that my first job when I moved back to Mankato was working in the emergency department as a patient care assistant. And I was getting trained on how to put the orders in. And a family, the ambulance came in, Gold Cross came in, and they were doing compressions on a child, a baby. Mm. And the parents came in afterwards. And unfortunately, the baby didn't make it. And it was shortly after, I didn't stay long after that because it broke me. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine what those parents felt. And I still think about them. I remember what the mom was wearing, how she had her hair. I mean, that's how much it stuck to me. And this was 14 years ago.
Right.
I mean, it's something that I won't forget. And I went home and I got my babies out of their bed and I just held them. Right. I mean,
I've done that before. And in those situations, there's nothing we can say that will make anything feel okay.
And that's why your role is so important, and why it's people like you who educate us and, help us through these things and lead us through these things, because death is part of life. It does happen. It is taboo, but it doesn't have to be a taboo thing.
Right.
I mean, it's part of it. And we just, as a community, need to come together and support each other through it. And,
And I'm sure, I really liked when you mentioned that you help the families prepare, plan, get through the funeral, but you also help them after too. And so there are people that maybe, do they reach out, or you also mentioned a lot of times their families will help them, but sometimes are there certain resources that you provide to families, or?
We don't have a lot of resources within the Mankato area funeral homes, but within the community there are.
Okay.
And, a lot of people have a church that they belong to who has resources. One Bright Star is a resource to those families. A 42-year-old man that died is still a child.
Yes.
So it's just nice to know of the local organizations that would help. But I have people months, even years later, that will reach out to me, and because we give our cell phone numbers out, and they text or call or say,
wow.
"Hey, I just thought of you," or
That's really neat.
a couple months ago, I had a gentleman text me. He's like, "Hey, 1 year ago we met today, and I'm so glad you came into my life, even though he lost a child, and that was the worst time of his life."
Wow.
But
That's
just those things.
Yes.
It's nice to
That's really
be there
neat.
for them.
Absolutely. And I bet you see people in the community all the time, and you see them in passing, and I would assume they probably recognize you, but you maybe recognize them. And there's just a lot of interaction. So.
Yeah, it's nice to see people outside of the funeral home and
Yes.
not in the suit and
right.
Real
just
life.
casual. Yeah, to show that, we're all human and
Yes. Part of the community. And yes, you have your regular busy lives like everyone else too. So yes.
Yeah.
That's really
Great.
Yeah, I've got goosebumps when you told me that a gentleman
I think
reached out
that's
to you.
really
Yeah,
special.
that's-
Yes.
You
Good for you.
made such an impact on his life in a horrible situation.
Right.
You're going to be somebody he remembers forever.
Yeah, he is
Right.
thankful that you were there. So
especially when you lose a child. I mean, we're there to just kind of start that grieving process to help you make decisions with what you want, not what we want, but just to help you get through that process, support you along the way so you can grieve.
and begin that journey, like you said.
Yeah.
That's yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the funeral home, One Bright Star is actually partnered with, did a pilot with Mankato area funeral homes of One Bright Star offering a funeral grant. And Jonna helped organize all of that. And we are looking at expanding to further funeral homes. And we upped the funeral grant amount. So that was awesome for you helping with that, Jonna.
Yeah, everybody on our staff knows that I've obviously helped pilot this program. So we just want to assist those families with expenses when it comes to the funeral.
Like we said, you don't ever plan for
Right.
your child
Absolutely.
to die before you, ever. And I think about this all the time. I don't have life insurance policies on my kids, because they're my kids, I never really thought about that until I joined One Bright Star,
Right.
Kind of thing. And like, is that something we should do? And but if you don't, because you don't expect it,
Right.
you're not prepared.
Right. I would say most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
The people that
Right.
do are funeral directors.
I was gonna say,
But no, with this grant, we just want to help support these families just a little bit if we can, just to offset some expenses in such a hard, tragic time in their life.
absolutely.
And they can do that through you at the funeral home.
Yep. We can help them submit any paperwork. And luckily, I'm on the board for One Bright Star, which makes it a lot easier.
Yes.
You do so
And we-
much for One Bright Star, really, Jonna. She stays busy. I keep her busy. I feel like I've learned a lot today already, and I pretty much learn something new every time I talk to you, Jonna. So I'm forever grateful for you.
Thank you. I thank you. I appreciate
Yes.
you saying that.
Actually, we may want to have you come back too, because there's so many different aspects, and you even kind of touched on a little bit, Erica, just with like the different options. And this podcast is focusing on, loss, and that's the start of the journey. And so
That's a
we
really
can
good way to
maybe
put it.
visit again too. So you've got a lot to share. We appreciate it.
I'd be happy to come back.
Good. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you all. Until next time, this is One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast.
Thanks for listening to One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast. Life After Loss is a copyrighted production of One Bright Star. One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast is sponsored by the law firm of Burkholtz and Associates. For more information on the lifelong journey after losing a loved one, please visit our website at onebrightstar.org.